Question: how do you know when you should commit? How do you know if the person you're dating now is the person you'll be sharing a life with? Is it a feeling or is it a decision? We are diving into all these big questions on this episode. Let's get to it. Welcome back to Dating Intentionally. I'm Talia. I'm a dating coach, and I'm sharing no nonsense advice for navigating modern dating with confidence and ease. Whether you've been on dozens of dates or you're just getting started, I believe dating can be fun. And if you're listening to this the week it comes out, send me some good vibes because I'm getting married in a few days. So I wanted to get into this topic, having some recent experience with this question: how do you know they're the one? So I'd love to hear from you in the comments of this episode if you're watching on YouTube or listening on Spotify. What do you think? How do you know they're the one? Is it a feeling? Is it a decision? A mix of both? I asked this question on Instagram and I'm excited to share some of your answers in a bit. And by the way, if you want to connect with me on Instagram, you can find me at dating.intentionally. All my social media is linked in the show notes. I'd love to connect with you. I love hearing from you. Okay, but first I want to get into how I knew or how I decided my fiance was the one. And by the way, I don't think there's just one person out there for everyone. I think there's way more than one person that we could be happy with on earth. So when I say the one, I am talking about the choice to get married to someone, which isn't even something that can only happen once in a lifetime. Like people can have two, three, maybe even four marriages in their life if they want. So I'm hoping it's just one for me, obviously. But anyway, when I talk about the one, I mean the person you choose to spend your life with, to be with long term, whether you get married or not. And like I said earlier, I don't believe in the one. I believe in deciding to pick one person based on what you need and they become the one. Let's be real. I'm sure I have divorced and remarried people listening to this who, thought their ex-spouse was the one and, only to find that it didn't work out. That's okay. So, I guess I want to talk about how to know they are long-term dating material, how to know they're marriage material, how to know you're making a good decision when you decide to commit to someone or spend your life with them. And I am saying this as someone who is not married yet, but has made the decision. So I didn't know Johnny, my fiance, was the one on the first date or the second or the third. Again, like I said, it's more of a decision than a feeling. So for me, it wasn't that I knew he was the one. I decided I wanted it to be him. I wanted him to be the one after I got to know him, after I experienced being in a relationship with him for some time. So here are 5 reasons I decided I wanted Johnny to be the one. The first one is he's a calming presence for me. When I'm upset or anxious or stressed, while he isn't responsible for managing those emotions for me or anything, being around him does help me feel more grounded. And the things he does and the things he says when I'm in distress don't make what I'm feeling worse. And I really need that in my life. Like knowing how to show up when I'm stressed, anxious, or sad is my love language. And I typically move on from these feelings pretty quickly when I'm around the right people. Also, as a person, Johnny is calm, cool, and collected. I have never seen this man flip out over anything. And I tend to definitely be the one who flips out more over things. The second one is we have similar values and we care about the same things for the most part. I wouldn't say we align 100% on everything, but we align enough on the big stuff like family, social time versus alone time, what we value in relationships, and the things, we have enough in common to enjoy similar activities while also having different interests to enjoy some stuff solo in our lives. We have a good balance of things we care about and things we maybe don't line completely on, but that's okay. The third one is we enjoy each other's presence. I love being around this man. He's goofy, silly, funny, and smart. Like, I look forward to waking up next to him every day. We're truly friends. We have a friendship, which I don't think I really had in a relationship before, to be honest. I don't feel like I need to be on around him or like walk or on eggshells around him like I have in past relationships. Like I really just love being around him. I could be around him all day. Like we've traveled together. That's traveling with someone is a great way to test if you're really long-term material because you are basically in each other's presence the whole time and you get to see, how you are after spending like 4, 5, 6, 7 or more days together. The fourth one is he meets my 5 non-negotiable needs most of the time, good enough, right? It's 80%. No one can meet 100% of your needs like 100% all the time. We have to aim for good enough because we're human. So I've talked about my 5 needs in a relationship a lot. And if you have not heard this before, I'll go through them really quickly. My 5 needs in a partner are the basics, so trust, loyalty, sense of humor, stuff in common, all that stuff. A desire for novel experiences, including travel. Someone who has goals for themselves and wants to have shared goals in a couple. Someone who I want to be around when shit hits the fan and when things go well, like someone empathetic, and someone who is open to self development and working on the relationship. Those are my 5 needs. And if you want to know what yours are, you can check out my self guided course on figuring out your needs in the show notes. The course takes about 40 to 60 minutes to go through, which is a lot faster than the 5 years it took me to figure out. And there are worksheets, journaling prompts, and I teach you how to actually use this information when making decisions in your relationships and when you're dating. So you can go check that out. And the fifth one is we handle conflict well together. So this is everything to me. I knew I had to be with someone who could get through conflict with me while maintaining our connection and someone who has the ability to repair after conflict. Like without this element, it doesn't matter how good or fun or your relationship is or how strong your connection is, being able to repair after conflict is where it counts. Also, being able to not do too much damage when in conflict, like insulting each other and screaming and yelling and all that scary stuff. With Johnny, we never yell. We can take breaks if things start to get a little heated. We try to understand each other's point of view, even if we disagree, and we always repair after conflict. When I say repair, I mean reminding each other that we love each other, hugging, kissing, making each other laugh, all those things that remind us that we have love and respect for each other, even when we don't see eye to eye, even when we butt heads, even in conflict. I could come up with so many more reasons why I believe Johnny is the one for me, why I've decided he's the one, but I think these are the top 5. I think we overcomplicate sometimes who we choose as the one. And I think when you're truly in a relationship that adds value to your life, meaning it brings calm and peace to your life, not chaos, then the choice is pretty straightforward. Don't get me wrong. Johnny and I annoy each other at times. We both do things and say things that cause conflict because we're human. It's going to happen. Our relationship is 80% easy. We communicate well, we have love for each other, we respect each other, and then we're going to figure out the rest. And I think that is the most important thing, that we know that we have to keep working at that 20%. We can't just not work at it and hope it all works out. I also think it's important to know that even the things about him that annoy me, I love those parts about him too. Like I accept those parts. No one is perfect. And I chose a partner with annoying quirks that I know I can handle. He handles my annoying quirks too. I guess what I'm trying to point out here is that whoever you choose to be with, like whoever you choose as the one you end up with, the one you commit to or marry or start a family with, isn't going to be perfect. But ideally, the good stuff about them outweighs the annoying stuff. What I want you to take away from this is that when it comes to deciding that someone is the one, the decision isn't going to primarily be based on how attractive they are, how much you're attracted to them, their job, how much money they make, how tall they are, what they post on social media, and all these surface level things. Yes, attraction is important, but trust me, when you've been in a relationship 5, 10, 15 years, you're not going to be attracted to that person every day, no matter what. I don't care if they look like your celebrity crush. They're going to do things and say things that give you the ick sometimes eventually. That doesn't mean they're not the one. It just means they're a person. The takeaway is when it comes to deciding someone is the one, your decision will be more based on how they treat you, how much you trust each other, what you want to build together, and how much you enjoy time spent with them because you're going to spend a lot of time with this person. You might as well choose someone you really like being around. When I asked the dating intentionally community on Instagram about how to know someone is the one, I got some incredible answers. So here is what some of those answers were. It's easy and fun 99% of the time. You feel most yourself around them. They're willing to work on the things that aren't working. They add value to your life instead of taking it away. Even thinking about their flaws makes you smile. They bring you peace. Sometimes you just know. Their love for me makes me love myself more. We don't need each other, but we choose each other every day. You know they're the one when you are the most unguarded, authentic version of yourself. They bring you peace, not chaos. The way you handle conflicts and problems make you both feel more loved and connected. And those were some of the main ones I got. I mean, to me, those are just beautiful. I love them. Thank you for sharing. Other comments I got were The one today might not be the one tomorrow. You have to keep choosing them every day. I agree. I mean, that is, I think if you're listening to this in your divorce, that's probably what you went through, right? Like you chose the one, but then some years passed and things happened, things change, and then they weren't the one anymore. A lot of people chimed in and said there is no such thing as the one. There are potentially lots of people you could be happy with. Absolutely agree. When I think about my dating journey, I went out with 64 people in 10 months. There were absolutely probably, I would say maybe 5 people I probably could have had a great relationship with and they could have been the one. I just wasn't ready, to date them or whatever. I just wasn't in the right headspace to have a relationship at certain points in that journey. So like I do think though I've met people in my life that could have been the one, but I ended up with the one I have now and I'm really happy about that. Other people chimed in and said the one is just a false concept we only strive for. I mean, I partially agree. Again, I don't think there's no one perfect person for you. It is going to be an imperfect person that you decide to love. Anyway, thank you so much for submitting these. And again, you can connect with me on Instagram at dating.intentionally. I would love to hear from you. So, I want to get into 3 ways that we get tripped up on who to commit to long term. And this applies to getting into a long term relationship or deciding to get married or commit on whatever level that you are thinking about. The first one is we overthink it. So, overthinking meaning we analyze every little thing they say and do. And we try to build a story that supports whatever we want, whether it's a story about how they're perfect for us or a story about how it would never work. And I am guilty of this. I have to catch myself in the act of like analyzing someone's behavior and using that information, like my analysis, to support whatever story I'm trying to build in my head about that person, right? I'm trying to confirm my own beliefs. That might not be the reality, right? That's just like how I feel about things. It's unfair to define someone by one action or one thing they said, whether it's supporting positive beliefs about them or negative beliefs. So when we overthink, we have to catch ourselves and zoom out and look at all their behavior and what has actually been consistent. What do they do most of the time? That's what we should be paying attention to. We also stress ourselves out when we overthink, like all the what ifs that come along with making big decisions. Like, what if his ex comes back into the picture? What if she decides she doesn't want kids? Or what if they end up getting a job across the country that they mentioned one time 6 months ago and never brought up again? When we decide someone is the one, we are also deciding that we will navigate anything that comes up in the relationship together. One of my favorite tips to share is that is to not create problems that don't exist yet. So if you're in a relationship and you feel like you're not sure they're the one, don't let yourself spin out into all these scenarios that may or may not happen. Focus on what's actually happening today. Focus on what's real. And of course, focus on what is most likely to happen, which is usually not the worst case scenario in your mind, usually. The way to counteract overthinking is trust. Do you trust your person? Do you trust that they have your best interests at heart as well as theirs? Do you trust that you could navigate things together and figure it out? Those are the questions to reflect on when you find yourself overthinking a decision about whether or not someone is the one. These questions definitely helped me before and during my engagement. And I think when you've dated someone for a few years, you've likely experienced some moments together where you had to figure out some issue or work through some conflict. So when you catch yourself overthinking, you can reflect on how those things panned out when you had to compromise or discuss something or talk through a challenge. Like what actually happened? I think for me, like one of my big fears is with my person not being able to navigate future challenges, but I have to remind myself like, "Oh, we've gone through a lot already. How has that played out? Okay, so in the future it'll probably play out in a similar way." Right? Another aspect of this overthinking piece is timing. Like I think a lot of us worry about trying to figure out if someone is the one really early on, but you don't need to know if someone is the one after a few dates. You can't know. You can't know that for sure unless there are like some massive obvious deal breakers and red flags and stuff like that. I think a reasonable time frame to know if someone's a person you want to commit to long term or get married to is 6 months to a year of dating consistently. Situationships don't count. Another way that we get tripped up around figuring out who's the one, is that we keep looking for something better. I think this is something that is getting worse and worse in our culture. There are so many options out there, and we feel that thanks to the apps and texting and constantly being in touch on social media. I know this sounds bad, but I don't think it's wise to look for the perfect person. And when you hear that, you might think, wow, Talia, are you telling me to settle? No, it's just that the perfect person probably doesn't exist. The best move is to focus on finding someone good enough, which I know doesn't sound romantic, but if you want to start a family and build a life with someone, good enough is the way to go. Otherwise, you will never stop looking. And maybe that's what you want. Maybe you are okay with never with continuing your search throughout your whole life if that's what you want. But I think if you want to find someone and start that chapter of your life, good enough can work really well, actually. And the third way we trip ourselves up is we keep thinking there's supposed to be more, right? Like when we're dating someone and maybe we've been with them for a year or like 2 years or whatever, and you're kind of like something feels like it's missing, like there's no more chemistry, there's no more spark. And it's like, yeah, chemistry and sparks are things that exist a lot in the beginning when there's a lot of novelty in the relationship and then they kind of die off. If you want chemistry in your relationship, you need to inject it with novelty, meaning having new experiences consistently, like every month or whatever. Like go doing something new together. That's what keeps the spark and chemistry alive in a relationship. If you don't do that, it's going to die. And I think that I've talked to married couples that I know, like some people who feel disappointed because they thought that love was just supposed to be easy and love will take care of everything and love is all you need. And it's like, no, it's way more than just love. Love is not enough. And that a long-term relationship might not be as magical as we've been told it's going to be. Like part of me's like, why, where did we get this idea it's supposed to be magical for decades and decades? It's unrealistic in my mind. So I think we trip ourselves up around this decision of how do you know they're the one because we think there's supposed to be more romance, more chemistry, more passion, more fire. When it's like, it's as simple as do you like spending every day with them? Like, that's really it. So let's talk about how to decide you want to commit to someone, whether that's for marriage, long term dating, cohabitation, or whatever it is you're looking for. The first one, no surprises, is compatibility. So, compatibility is just how well you work together, how well you mesh, how much you're aligned with your lifestyle, like how you live your life, how aligned you are on goals and things you want in your life, things you're working towards, and your values, that things that you care about, things you put energy into. So, for example, lifestyle, an incompatible lifestyle, it could still work, but it's going to be harder. I think about a couple I know, one person in the couple is a very healthy eater and the other person in the couple has like one meal a day and eats a lot of candy and they struggle because of this. So like they've been together for a while, but that's a lifestyle misalignment, unalignment, misalignment that causes conflict often. It's something they keep having to deal with because they are not aligned in this part of their lifestyle. For one example, for how Johnny and I are aligned is another food example, but we're both the kinds of people who can eat the same thing every single day for lunch and we appreciate novelty in food and trying different restaurants. And I love that about us. It's like you have to eat 3 times a day and it's like you're eating so many meals with your partner. It better it's gonna work better if you're on the same page about certain things, and obviously, things change as we age and everything, and there's different seasons of life, but for the most part, I'm so happy I'm in a relationship with someone who eats similar like, we have similar eating habits and things we wanna eat. It makes life so much easier. So those are just some examples about compatibility. Again, there are so many different examples I could share, but that I think is something you want to pay attention to when making the decision of if you want to get into a relationship or commit to someone long term. Another one is emotional connection, and that is thinking about what you need emotionally and do they provide that? Like, I'm someone who needs empathy from my partner. I need to be understood. I don't need a partner to solve my problems. I need a partner who will just like be like, yeah, what you're experiencing sounds hard. End of story. So it's like that is what I need to feel emotionally connected. And it's like, and luckily I'm with someone who does that. So whatever it is for you, can that person step up and give you what you need emotionally? Great question to think about. The third thing to think about is shared vision. So especially for long term, if you want to get married, do you have a overlapping vision of what you want your life to look like? Like maybe what kind of family you want to have, how you want to spend time with your existing family units, how many vacations you want to have every year, where do you want to go, what kind of vacations you want to take or trips, what do you want to do on a weekly basis with your partner, like all these things about the future. Do you have a shared vision? It doesn't have to be totally aligned 100%, but like has to have some overlap. The fourth one is conflict resolution. And again, I stress this all the time. So important. How you manage conflict can make or break your relationship. So when you are disagreeing, if you were in an argument, are you treating each other with respect? Or do you lose the plot and you like nitpick at each other and you can never get to a solution and no one feels heard, no one feels understood, you can't repair, you lose trust, like all this stuff? Or are you working to understand each other and figure out what makes sense? And maybe sometimes knowing you can't solve everything, but you can make each other feel understood. So that's the fourth thing, conflict resolution. How do you handle conflict in your relationship? If every time you have a conflict, you don't talk for a few days or it takes a while to get the relationship back on track, that's not a great sign. And the fifth one is, do you like being around them? I think a big deciding factor is how much do you enjoy spending time with them doing nothing, running errands, doing boring adult shit, doing the dishes at night, making coffee in the morning. I mean, that's going to be most of your life spent together with someone, not the date nights and the trips and the big milestones. The mundane is going to fill up most of your time. And if you ask me, you got to choose the person you have fun with when you're doing the most boring routine things. Or maybe fun, the word fun doesn't resonate with you. Maybe the word peace does, or calm, or connected, something positive, all right? So, because that's the bulk of your relationship, it's just like the little moments of between all the big moments, right? There's more of those than anything else throughout the year. The last thing I want to touch on is pressure. We put a lot of pressure on ourselves when deciding who to date or who to commit to. I know there are daters out there who put so much pressure on themselves to find the right person that they never end up choosing anyone. And I have empathy for you if that you're in that situation. One reframe that really helped me when it comes to making decisions is this: there are no wrong decisions. Every decision you make, you have the opportunity to turn that into the right decision. Here's an example. Let's say you decide you wanted to switch careers. So you quit your job, then you go work in another industry for a year in a different role, and it turns out you hate it. Was switching careers the wrong decision? No, because there was no way to really know how you'd feel until you got there, and now you have all this new information to support your next decision and the next one. Every experience and every decision comes with lessons. It's on us to recognize what our decisions teach us rather than being like, "Oh, I made the wrong choice, silly me." So, when it comes to love and dating, this is why I always say, let it play out. Trust your gut and let it play out. Use the knowledge you have to make the best decisions you can, which, by the way, is way better than never deciding at all out of the fear of making the wrong decision. Because at some point, you need to make the leap, or the universe ultimately decides for you. So, when you're at that point where you might get into a relationship or you're deciding if this person is the one you want to marry, trust your gut and think about what is truly important to you in the long run, not on the surface level. Okay? You've got this. I want to thank you for listening. Thanks for trusting me. I hope I helped you think about making big decisions in your dating life with a fresh perspective. And don't forget, you're doing great. I love it if you share this episode with someone who is navigating dating and might need a little confidence boost or some tough love. If any of these episodes have helped you in your journey, you can help me by leaving a stunning review on Apple or giving Dating Intentionally 5 stars on Spotify. I'd really appreciate it. Once again, I'm Talia. This has been Dating Intentionally, and I'll catch you next time.